Hello, everybody.
Namaste, Bhante.
Namaste.
Danavant.
Bhante.
Good afternoon, Bhante.
Good afternoon.
आप कैसे हैं Bhante?
Oh, ठीक है. Is Prashant there?
Let's see.
Either.
Yeah.
Really.
Right there.
14.
Oh, Prashant, you want me to make you the host?
I'm Bhante, I'm already a host.
Oh, you already took my job.
Took your job. Not Bhante, really. Can't take your job. You have to do your job.
Vad säger du? Kanske helgdag.
Voices.
Was oh.
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
Corona.
Corona.
Okay, we'll go ahead and start with reciting Namo Tassa and the three refuges for those who like to do that. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Buddhang Saranang Gacchami. Dhammang Saranang Gacchami. Sanghang Saranang Gacchami. Dutiyampi Buddhang Saranang Gacchami. Dutiyampi Dhammang Saranang Gacchami. Dutiyampi Sanghang Saranang Gacchami. Tatiyampi Buddhang Saranang Gacchami. Tatiyampi Dhammang Saranang Gacchami. Tatiyampi Sanghang Saranang Gacchami. So I welcome friends to this Sunday afternoon or evening, depending on where you are, Dhamma program. And last week I had started going over some the first two verses of the Dhammapada, which basically the translation went as the mind is the forerunner of all conditions. All those conditions are mind-made. Mind is their chief. Mind is their master. If one acts or speaks with a defiled state of mind, then suffering follows, as the cartwheel follows the foot of the ox. And the opposite, that if one acts or speaks with an impure state of mind, then suffering follows, as your shadow follows you around. Now, I had already explained that verse last week in terms of how our karma, follows us around, and the unskillful karma, then painful circumstances and effects can keep coming back to us over and over and over again, multiple times, through many years or even lifetimes, even from one action. And the same with the good things, even just doing something good, some good deed or some insight that you get from meditation can have those effects also of following you around, not only in this life, but in the next life as well. Now, a question had come up about wanting to know the story behind the Dhammapada verse, because the Dhammapada verses have a little story that's usually connected with some event between people in the Buddha's life or even the Buddha's own experience, but remembering the past lives and how karma had followed people around, he gave certain stories about it, and they're quite, very interesting. Some of them people may not, maybe not believe it or not, but anyway, according to Buddha, he could remember people's past lives and all the actions that they have done and how they're reborn and how the karmas from one life would cause even the same people to meet up again in a future life, and with either quarreling or with friendship and so on. But I didn't read those stories from the first two verses. Now, the first chapter of the Dhammapada are called the twin verses. So there's actually two verses kind of with the opposite meaning. So the first one was, if one acts or speaks with an evil state of mind, then suffering follows. And the opposite is, if one acts or speaks with a pure state of mind, then comfort and happiness follows. So I'm going to be going through the Dhammapada for some time, because they're nice, little one stanza. As I mentioned, they're footprints of the Buddha. They're footprints of the Dhammapada. That's why they're called Dhammapada, because they're footprints leading to the Dhamma, leading our mind to the Dhamma. And I'm following these stories, especially in the translation from Venerable Narada, his book on the Dhammapada. Somebody might have put that up on the chat, either Prashant or John Wilson had, I think, put a link up to that, or maybe not. But anyway, it's Venerable Narada's book that you can look up. But so I wanted to read the story connected with these first two verses of the Dhammapada, and then go on to the next set of the twin verses. And so if any questions come up in your minds connected with these, you can ask them toward the end by writing a chat, or Prashant will take your question or ask you to speak up. So in this first story about how the evil, one acts or speaks with an impure mind, then suffering follows. So this is the story connected with that. So there was a middle-aged devout person named Chakupala, a follower of the Buddha, but he became a monk, and he was very energetically leading the contemplative life, living aloof, practicing meditation. And because of that, he realized arahantship. That means full liberation. But even though he attained arahantship, he went blind. Now, a lot of people would say, well, how can a person attain arahantship and then, go blind? Well, so this story kind of explains that. So it is said that one day after he was blind, he was walking up and down on the outside walking meditation path. And because he couldn't see, he inadvertently trampled on many insects, perhaps ants or small other little insects that were, on the ground, but Chakupala could not see them. And so some visiting monks, they noticed the blood-stained ambulatory from either the blood on the foot of the monk from being bitten by some of these insects, or the blood of the insects himself that was trampled. And they complained to the Buddha. They said, oh, that Arahant, he's supposed to be an Arahant, yet he killed these insects. And then the Buddha explained that the monk had killed him unintentionally, and that he was an Arahant, so he would not intentionally deprive any living being of life, but because he was blinded, and he didn't know the insects were there, he inadvertently had killed them. So the monks wished to know the cause of his blindness. And they said, well, why did he go blind? And then the Buddha related that in a past birth, this monk had been a doctor, a physician. And this doctor, the monk who was now an Arahant, had been a doctor in his past life. And he had given ointment to a poor woman to restore her eyesight. So evidently there was a poor woman who had poor eyesight. I don't know if she was blind or not. She might have been blind or partially blind. But anyway, and she promised that with her children, she would become his servants if her eyesight was restored. So she had no money to pay the doctor, but the doctor treated her. And then she made this promise that she would become his servants along with her children if her eyesight was restored. And the doctor's remedy proved effective. And the woman regained her eyesight. But this woman was not willing to keep her promise because she didn't want to become the servant of this doctor along with her children. So she pretended that her eyes were getting worse. Even though her eyes got better, she pretended to the doctor that her eyes were getting worse. And then the physician yielded to a wicked thought. I guess he knew that the woman was, fooling and trying to get out of her promise of being a servant. So the physician gave in to his unwholesome thoughts and retaliated to the woman by giving her another ointment which blinded her eyes. And in consequence of his past evil actions, even though in this next life he did become an Arahant, but because of that evil action that he did, he became blind. So again, somebody might think this story is far-fetched, but that's the way karma works. And this is the retributive aspect of the law of karma. The other being the continuous aspect. That means individual characteristics of a person, their tendencies are carried over from lifetime to lifetime. And even though an Arahant is free from all impurities, they have to reap the fruit of the seeds that he himself had sown in the past life. And I also gave the story last week about Mahamoggallana, who had murdered his parents in a very remote lifetime. But then, Moggallana had become an Arahant and the chief disciple of the Buddha, in his last life. And even though he was a master of psychic power, he had some unfinished karma that he had to pay back from having killed his parents many previous lifetimes in the past that he hadn't evidently gotten over yet. So it is said that Mahamoggallana he was living in a cave, and some robbers came, saw Moggallana going to a cave, and they thought, oh, let's go rob this monk. Maybe he's got some valuables in that cave. So Moggallana could read their minds and knew that they were coming in to kill him, so he made himself invisible. And the robbers came in the cave and searched the cave, and well, we saw him come in, and now he's not here. They were perplexed. And so they came back the next day, hoping Moggallana would be in there. And the same thing, Moggallana made himself invisible. And then a third time they came in. Then Moggallana, he thought, these guys really wanted to harm me, What's going on? So with his psychic power, he went back through his past lives and realized, I had killed my parents, so many lifetimes ago. This is why I can't leave the world until I've paid back this karma. So the fourth time, or the next time the robbers came to the cave, he didn't make himself invisible. And the robber said, there he is, let's get him. And they went over to him and beat him to a pulp, and it said that it broke every bone in his body. But with his psychic power, I may have told this story even last week, but I'll just finish it again. With his psychic power, he was able to put his bones back together enough to be able to walk to where the Buddha was staying in Savatthi. I'm not sure how far it was, but it's all the disciples of the Buddha before they died or when they were about to pass away, they would go and take leave of the Buddha. So he wanted to do that. So he managed to make it back to where the Buddha was and told him, okay, I'm attaining parting Nibbana now, and paid his last respects to the Buddha. And then as soon as he did that, he dropped dead. Anyway, that's just another interesting story about how we have to pay off some of these karmic debts. So anyway, that was the negative aspect. Now, in the story about the good things, one acts or speaks with a pure state of mind, then happiness will follow. So the story on that verse is that there was a son of a stingy millionaire. And the son of the stingy millionaire was named Mata Kundali. And this son of the millionaire was suffering from jaundice and was on the verge of death because his father was so stingy, he wouldn't go and consult a physician, to pay money to a physician to look at his son or to give his son some treatment. And so the boy, was dying because of his stingy father, didn't want to spend any money for the doctor. So the Buddha, perceiving this situation with his divine eye, he saw the sad plight of the dying boy, and he appeared before the dying boy with his psychic power. And then seeing the Buddha, this boy was pleased, and he died with a pure heart full of faith in the Buddha. Even though this boy was dying, he saw the Buddha and he was filled with faith. And he died with a pure heart. And because of that, he was born in a heavenly state. So because of that one act of, seeing the Buddha and developing faith and dying with that faith in his heart, this happiness followed him to the next life. So anyway, whether you believe these stories or not, it's the kind of the general principle involved about how our actions, are carried over in this life itself, as well as in subsequent lives. Now we want to go on to the next two verses. of the Dhammapada in the twin chapter of the twin verses. And I'm going to chant the Pali of them first and then read the English translation. Akochi man avadimam ajinimam mahasime ye tam upanayanti veram tesam na sammati. Akochi mam avadimam ajinimam mahasime ye tam na upanayanti veram tesu pasammati. So the English translation is, he abused me, he beat me, he defeated me, he robbed me. In those who harbor such thoughts, hatred is not appeased. And then the opposite verse, he abused me, he beat me, he defeated me, he robbed me. And by the way, those pronouns could be replaced with she also. In those who do not harbor such thoughts, hatred is appeased. So, and then there's another verse we'll get to that's related to that. So, we're always blaming others for our problems. Oh, they did this to me, they did that to me. And that's what generates our resentment and ill will towards people. And if we die without having forgiven those people, then those memories can be carried over to a past life too. And there's plenty of stories about that, where people carry their quarrels over even into the next lifetimes. So the story behind the first one about he beat me, he defeated me, he robbed me. There's a venerable Tissa, he was a monk, and he was a cousin of the Buddha. And he was very proud of being a cousin of the Buddha. Look, I'm the cousin of the Buddha, like treat me with respect or something. And so he did not pay due respect to the senior monks. So it's a custom in the monastic tradition for a new monk or a junior monk to pay the respects by standing up before them or giving them a seat or giving salutations to somebody who's been in the order longer than them. And so the other monks resented this improper conduct, and this venerable Tissa took offense. And threatening them, he went up to the Buddha and made a complaint. Oh, these monks are not respecting me. The junior monks that were junior to this Tissa did not pay their respects. And the Buddha understood the position and understood how this venerable Tissa also was not paying due respect to the other senior monks. And the Buddha advised him to apologize. But this venerable Tissa, cousin of the Buddha, was obstinate. And then the Buddha related the story to show that this Tissa had done the same thing in a previous birth. And therefore he carried this habit along with him. And then so the venerable Tissa was compelled by the Buddha to seek pardon from the senior monks in order to overcome that habit. So the constant advice of the Buddha to his followers is not to retaliate, but to practice patience at all times, at all places, even under provocation. Now, the opposite story of this that in those who do not harbor such thoughts, hatred is appeased. Actually, looks like there's no story for that second part of the. Anyway, I'm going to go on to verse number 5 now, which is kind of correlated to this. And I'll chant the Pali to it. Na hi verena verani samantida kudachanam. Averena cha samanti esadamo sanatam tano. So hatreds never cease through hatred in this world. Through love alone they cease. This is the eternal law. That's a very well-known quotation from this verse. And this is an interesting story. A husband had 2 wives. This was back in those days when it was a more of a common thing. A husband had 2 wives, and one was barren, and the other was fruitful. And the one who was barren was jealous of the other wife who could conceive. And so this jealous woman who couldn't conceive mixed a drug in this other lady's food, the rival for the husband's attention, and caused 2 successive abortions. On the 3rd occasion, that drug caused the death of both the mother and of the child. And then that dying woman willed vengeance on this other lady and her offspring, and she carried out her will. That means the one who was dying vowed to get even in the next life to this woman who had drugged and killed her. And the 2 did likewise. Thus both women avenged themselves in the course of 2 successive births, and they killed each other's children. But in the 3rd birth circumstances, both of these women were compelled to go meet the Buddha, who pacified them by advising them not to retaliate. And I guess because of the potency of the Buddha's words and meeting the Buddha in person, that they were able to, comply with that and overcome this type of vengeance. So again, there's, with the law of karma, there's one is that karma means every time you do an action, it strengthens the imprints of those memories in the mind that will cause you to do them over again and over. And so they're successive and they accumulate. And on the other hand, it brings a kind of result, the Newton's law of an equal or opposite reaction. So both of those types, both the reaction and then the strengthening of the habit, are involved with the law of karma. So the importance of that is learning how to develop mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom, and apply the right effort to try to avoid these, blaming others and harboring ill will and resentment, whether through jealousy or through other reasons towards others, and harboring that ill will and hatred towards others, no matter what they did. And one way of reasoning that, of course, a lot of people don't like to hear about the law of karma because, they just don't think it's real, or they don't want to admit the truth. But when something happens to us, we have to consider, well, I could have caused done this sort of things to others, maybe plagiarized their work, maybe spread rumors about them, and one thing or another. And we can see those results of our actions in this life, and if they're not totally dissipated, they can carry over. And that's also the importance of practicing forgiveness and practicing metta. So, if we perceive somebody has wronged us, did something, instead of harboring the hatred, we can kind of rationalize it, say, well, maybe this is the karmic, I'm reaping this result of a past karma. Of course, people want to say, no, I wouldn't, I've never done that. Of course, if you don't believe in past lives, then it's more difficult to understand the law of karma. So acknowledging, okay, I could have done these things, so this is the result of that. But also understanding the harmful consequences that can come to you even in this life, and understand how every time you commit a karmic action, it strengthens itself. And so it's only through mindfulness of being aware of the intention before you've done the action, to reflect on it, and then hopefully let go of it. And then, but even if you are holding ill will, forgive that person. So every night, actually, it's a good idea, or even when you're practicing M&Ms that I've talked about a lot. You stop every hour, and if somebody offended you in the last hour, rather than, re-strengthening that, going over that in your mind, forgive them, or forgive yourself, so that you can go into the next hour without carrying that with you, and or in the evening, to go over the day's events and to forgive anybody who might have crossed you, or forgive yourself. And then send metta to oneself and to others, knowing that we're all like little children who are trying to walk, right? So a young baby just doesn't get up and start walking like a horse, that it takes them many weeks and months to gradually, hold on to things and strengthen their leg muscles. They take a few steps, stumble, fall, get back up, and then, finally they can walk. So in the same way, in our Dhamma practice, it's a lot like that, overcoming our unskillful actions and cultivating the wholesome ones. Okay, so having said that much, I want to now open it up to see if there's any questions about any of those verses. So we've covered these 5 verses, and then also probably on next Wednesday night, I'll continue with some the next verses in the Dhammapada. So both on Wednesday and Sunday for at least some period of time, I'm going to be going over these Dhammapada verses. So let's look at the chats here.
And as you mentioned, anyone who wants to ask a question, they can unmute themselves.
Okay. Yeah, because the chat thing doesn't seem to be scrolling down here. There was no other chat questions, person?
I don't see it. Any questions?
Okay. So if anybody has any questions about any of those verses or the law of karma in general, you can ask a question.
Okay, I have a question about reincarnation. I have always been fascinated as to, let me turn my video on here. I've always been very curious and fascinated, in Buddhist philosophy and also in with our Hindu religion. How do we prove this concept of reincarnation, that there actually is reincarnation?
Well, we don't necessarily have to prove it. But there's always people that want proof. Now, if you want to develop your meditation to the strength of the fourth jhana, and then do the appropriate exercises that help to open up the unconscious mind, where the memories of our past lives would be kind of kept, you might say, then we might remember our past lives and remember the things that we did. And there's also a psychic power called the divine eye, or Diba Chakku, that can see how other people also are dying and being reborn according to the karma. There are many suttas. So that's why the Buddha is an expert. Now, the modern scientists say, well, we don't accept that. We don't accept the memory of a mortal man as being proof.
Right.
See, that's the problem with modern science, If you can put it under a test tube, now they'll believe it, right?
Yeah.
Or some other gadget, if you can measure it with a radon meter or whatever, they might believe it, but they don't believe that a human being can develop their mind and develop psychic power. But that's because of the limited intelligence. And so that's the problem. So we can't necessarily prove it, but by observing and understanding how strong habits are, and of course there's examples of child prodigies, for example, that could wind up speaking an extinct foreign language at the age of 2, that there's no way, and he would have been able to learn that language at 2 years, any language at 2 years old, apart from some ancient extinct language.
Right.
So, there's a lot of compelling evidence, although scientists will say that's not proof. But anyway, so there isn't. But there's, the idea of karma and rebirth makes, at least to myself and many others, the most logical sense. That these propensities and things that we have with us couldn't have just are so strong that it's hard to imagine that they just originated in this life itself. Or that just by some whim or chance, some almighty creator God said, you're going to have these things and tough it out, So that doesn't make sense. So the law of karma and rebirth makes more sense than any other theory out there, at least, to a lot of people. Like love at first sight kind of things, or two people meet and they just hate each other from the outset and no apparent reason. And how even identical twins can, even though they're born of the same parents and they have the same exact genes, they're going to be different. Their lives could be totally different also in some respects, in that every person is unique. And in a family of 4 or 5 children, every one of those children will take different paths in life, and they had the same nurture and nature, you could say. And so just to explain it away, well, that's just by, chance or blah, 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 whatever, people, believe that. But law of karma again to myself, and many others makes the moral common sense.
So,
Not
Bhante,
necessarily proof, but it doesn't. We don't have to prove it. You see, Western science, they always want proof, but in the ancient Dharma, it's the results that matter, not the proof of what something is real or not real. So the Dhamma is the path of Dhamma, has its results. And if we abstain from negative actions, we become more happy and free from guilt, worry, remorse, and fear. And to escape the pain even from this life. So even if you're not reborn, if you do negative actions, you're going to suffer in this life for many years, people coming around to get revenge or to beat you or, all kind of things for what you might have done even in this life. And so, that's a type of a rebirth. In fact, in the deepest sense, rebirth is moment to moment. Every moment we're a new person. Because every moment our mental continuum has changed in one way or another. We're not the same person. You could go into a church being a non-believer and come out of church being a believer. You're not the same person anymore.
Right.
Or you could go to a Dhamma talk, you're a Dhamma talk, and come out inspired and become a Buddhist. You're not the same person anymore. There's thousands, millions of examples of this. So in that way, that is a rebirth. As we call momentary, rebirth, moment to moment. And our habits are being reborn every moment. That means they're getting stronger or weaker, depending on our Dhamma practice.
Yeah.
Okay?
So, Bhante, following that, is it true that through hypnosis, if somebody is doing hypnosis on you, they can take you to your previous births? What do you think about that?
I don't know. I don't have much experience with hypnosis, but I don't think the hypnotist would actually take you to a previous birth. They would help to unblock some parts of your mind, or maybe they do. And I don't understand it myself that much, and I'm not all that much interested in. Somehow the hypnotist is able to basically relax your mind to an extent that the memories of a previous life could then be accessed. And so, or they might say, that you did something in a previous life, and the mind could even make up some story about it. So, but anyway, I don't want to comment too much about hypnosis and so on, because I'm not that schooled in it.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Bhante.
Bhante, there is a question in the chat.
My chat thing isn't coming up for. Okay, here's a. You mentioned the practice of forgiveness. Could you provide a practical example of practicing forgiveness? Well, let's say a person insulted you for whatever reason. And maybe it was a slip of their speech. And then, they might have even apologized to you, but your mind couldn't accept that. And so, then, before, without because our ego would take that and start, if there were some other extenuating reasons from our past knowing this person, it might not let you let go of that. So you can practice saying that, okay, you said this to me, and maybe, I already gave an example. You can say, well, I'm sure I insulted people in my past. So on one level, this could be a karmic payback of my having insulted others in the past. And knowing that they're also not perfect, they're not an arhat, they make mistakes just as we make mistakes. So, and what is it? It's just words, you know, and it's their opinion. But sometimes we can reflect, okay, maybe I do have this fault, you know, that this person got upset and did this. But a lot of times we don't want to admit it, right? So you have to be very honest with yourself too. So there's, anyway, this knowing that, you know, these are just habits. We're all driven by habits. And knowing that if you harbor these ill wills and resentments, that it's just going to fester, and then, you know, you're going to be always disturbed by it until you let it go. So that's just one example. Somebody's saying, yeah, Dr. Ian Stevenson has written a book about childhood memories that provide strong evidence of rebirth. I've read those, and there's also some other stories, and even the Jataka stories we find in the Khuddaka Nikaya. There are also a lot of examples about that too. And that's another question. Could you please give some instructions on how to strengthen one's practice of mudita within the Brahma Viharas? Well, mudita, first of all, the Brahma Viharas are a graduated practice. You don't just start practicing equanimity. You don't just start practicing mudita. You don't just start practicing compassion, but we start with metta, because metta is the easiest one to practice. You know, just be friendly with people, right? It doesn't cost you anything. Just to be, you know, friendly toward people, not to have ill will towards them. So once we overcome this, you know, ill will towards people and develop a more friendly attitude, and also metta is based on the idea about rebirth, that we've all been each other's mother, brother, father, aunt and uncle, friend, enemy, and stranger in many lifetimes in the past. So we should treat the same way we have love toward our mother in this life, we should have that friendly attitude toward all people, because they could have been our mothers also in the last life. So that's one thing. So anyway, metta, you start with metta. You can't practice compassion really without metta, because how can you have compassion to help somebody out of their suffering if you're not friendly toward them? You know? So metta helps you to practice the compassion by at least becoming friendly, having a friendly attitude toward everybody. And then when you see somebody in distress, you'd be more willing to help them in some tangible way. And then mudita is being glad at the happiness of others. Now mudita goes deeper. Okay, you know, practice compassion. You can, you know, spend 15, 20 minutes, an hour helping somebody do something and so on. But, you know, if you're vying for a job and the other person gets that job and you don't, it's hard to have a mudita for them, because it's deeper, striking our ego deeper, you know. So sympathetic joy being happiness at the good fortune of others, even over our own bad, on account of, you know, causing us, you know, bad fortune. Like somebody wins a lottery, you spend thousands of dollars on a lottery ticket, and some other guy, first time he ever buys a lottery ticket, he strikes it rich. Naturally, you're going to think, well, you know, he didn't deserve that. You know? So to have sympathetic joy and being happy at that. So that's a higher level of mental purity. And then equanimity is even higher than mudita, is the most purified state of mind. So anyway, that's the way whenever you hear some good fortune of somebody, especially if it affects you personally, to be able to be glad about that person. If they got the job advancement over you, or they, whatever, they won an award, not you, you know, all these competitions that we lose, you know, people have a sour attitude thinking that they deserve it over somebody else. Never, everyone is naturally going to think that probably. So it's a way of weakening the ego. It's all about the ego, the sense of I and me. So, you know, there could be several examples throughout the day which you can practice sympathetic joy when you know somebody got some good fortune to them, even if somebody you don't particularly like. And maybe it doesn't involve you directly, but just because you may not like somebody, if they legitimately have some good fortune, you might, not be that happy about it. So, again, all these are about weakening, seeing how our own ego is clinging to our ideas. Any other questions?
Bhante, why is it so much harder to practice mudita as compared to loving kindness, loving compassion? Is it because we are jealous of others, or?
Because of jealousy, of course, jealousy, and just also greed, and thinking that we deserve this thing more than the other person. Now, friendliness, if you got two of something, it doesn't take much to share one of those with somebody else, right? Friendliness is just, an antidote for ill will, and having a mind full of ill will is a painful state. And when you do something kind for others, being friendly, like to a smile is a kind of a therapy, Smiling is known to be connected with emotions. And so being friendly and smiling at people rather than going, sticking your tongue out at somebody, all these are facial expressions of, anger and ill will. So to practice friendliness. But it's also connected with the karma. That if you put out friendliness, you get friendliness back to yourself. If you put out ill will and resentment, we'll get those vibrations back too. So anyway, but again, as I mentioned, sympathetic joy, it attacks our ego at a deeper level. That's why the ego conceit is one of the last fetters to be overcome. Even an anagami has subtle conceit and pride still left in their mind, which would be the source of not having mudita form. Okay, any other last question? Oh, there's one comment. It says, coming from a Mahayana background, the emphasis is more on sila, virtuous actions, versus compassion. Really, I thought compassion was the basis of the Mahayana background, the great compassion. Maybe I have that wrong, I don't know. Because, the Mahayanas take the vow to, not attain final nirvana until the last living being has entered nirvana before them, and they're supposedly that's due to compassion. So it seems that Mahayana actually has more emphasis on compassion.
Okay.
But you can't have compassion without sila too. So they're all interrelated. There was some comment about that.
Yeah, I think this is my a question for myself because I saw a lot of people who are very good relative, and then they do a lot of virtuous action, but they don't practice. Like they are not they don't they are good people, but they don't follow the path. They don't practice.
Well, that's the problem all around, isn't it? That within all religious or philosophies, there's always based on usually some very good points of truth, but the reality is the law of karma, that if you don't practice, no matter what you may believe, if you don't practice, then that belief becomes kind of hollow. So that's why you find that that it's the practice, not just the intellectual wisdom, but it's the practice of sila, samadhi, and panya that helps transform the mind. Okay, friends, I think that may be enough for our discussion today. So we're going to take a few minutes break. Use the restroom or drink some water, and then we'll do a few stretches and then have our meditation. Okay? So we'll see you back in a few minutes. Okay. So how does Analio see that what I meant? I guess people can hear me, right?
Yes, Bhante.
Okay. So just stand straight, relax your shoulders and arms at the side. Just gently close the eyes. Just feel the feet pressing the floor underneath. Start to feel the height and the weight of the body over the feet. Relax the shoulders. Feel the weight of the arms hanging from the side. Feel the touch of the clothing against the shoulders, arms, and chest. Gradually bringing the mind inside the body, the center on the body. And feel your head balanced on top. Keep the chin up level with the floor. Now begin some deep, slow breathing, three-part breathing, if you know that. Just drawing the air from the lower lung up through the middle to the top of the chest and lungs. Feel that expansion. Hold the air in the lungs for 2 or 3 seconds. And feel the relaxing contraction of the out breath. Just take a couple more deep, slow breaths like that. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, standing here and now. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, standing here and now. Just combining this deep breathing with these following simple movements. On the next in-breath, raise the arms over the head, interlock the fingers, turn the palms up, straighten the arms, stretch the head back, arch the lower back. On the out breath, turn the palms down, touch the top of the head. Again, in breath, palms up, straighten the arms, head back. Out breath, touch the top of the head. Third time, in breath, stretch upwards. Hold that upward stretch longer. Just feel the sensation. Then release your fingers. On the out breath, arms back to the sides. Feel the sensations as you lower the arms. Just feel the feet pressing the floor. Don't give the mind time to get lost in thoughts. Just remember standing, standing. Then next on an in-breath, push up on the toes while raising the arms up over the head. And stretch upwards. The out-breath, come back, the arms to the side, heels to the floor. Use the breathing to help lift and lower the body. The in-breath. Out. In. Out. Relax. Remember standing, standing, standing. Try to feel the subtle sensations, pulsations in the body. And next we'll do the knee bending. On the in-breath, push up on the toes, raise the arms up front. On the out-breath, bend the knees and lower the body down, balancing on the balls of the feet. In-breath to push up. Out-breath. In. Out. In. Out-breath, relax. Now spread the feet, legs and feet apart about 3 feet. We'll do the side bending. In breath, breathe in. And the out breath, bend over the right side. Let the hands slide down below the knee. In breath up. And other side, out breath. In. Into the right, out breath. Once more to each side. Out breath. Just relax. Just feel the whole body exactly as it is. Each foot pressing the floor. The arms and hands at the side. Head balanced on top. So many different sensations in and around the body. I'll bring the legs together. One last exercise, the head turning from right to left. On an in-breath, turn the head to the right. Or look over the right shoulder, turn your eyes to the right, look at some spot behind you. In-breath, turn 180 degrees back to the left. Look over the left shoulder. Turn the eyes to the left. In-breath to the right. Just concentrate into the neck vertebrae. Once more to each side. On the next in-breath, let the head stop in the center, relax. Feel the whole standing body. Try to tune into that organic aliveness of the whole body. Subtle vibrations, pulsations. Okay, friends. So let's get ready for the sitting meditation. Okay, so I'm going to turn off my video so that you can hopefully stay focused within yourself, looking inside of yourself. So just get comfortable with your seat or chair. If you're sitting in a chair, have your feet flat on the floor, not crossed. Try to align your back and spine with the back of the head. Just gently close the eyes. And first of all, just feel the weight of the body pressing the seat. Just feel where the buttocks and the feet press the floor. Feel those sensations, those earth element vibrations. Feel the way the legs are bent underneath. And feel your hands and fingers touching, where they touch together, where they touch your legs. Try to feel the outline of different thumbs or fingers. Feel the subtle sensations in the fingers. And feel the shoulders, relax the shoulders. Feel the weight of the arms hanging from the shoulders. And feel where the clothing touches the skin of the shoulders or upper arms or chest. Now feel the head balanced on top of the neck. Try to keep the chin lifted up, level with the floor. Try to find the center of gravity of the head and spine over the hips. So kind of just gently move the whole head and backwards until you come close to that tipping point. Then pause there. Just feel that erect posture, that alert posture. Try to maintain that erect posture, but relax at the same time. Try to hold that feeling of the sitting body in the mind's eye. And just remember sitting, sitting, sitting. And then begin taking some more 3-part or deep, slow breaths as we are doing during the yoga. After breathing in, expanding the chest, hold the air in the lungs 2 or 3 seconds to feel that pause, present moment pause, and feel the relaxing contractions of the out breath. Feeling the last bit of air go out of the lung. And then the next in breath. Just take several more deep, slow breaths like that, cultivating this basic mindfulness. And breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Just breathing in, feeling the whole body. Breathing out, feeling the whole body. Now I want to try to count the breaths from 1 to 10 again to gain a deeper concentration. So keep the attention focused on the expanding and contracting movements of the lungs. With the next expanding in-breath, mentally count 1. Holding the breath for 2 seconds. And with the contracting out breath, so count 1. The next expanding in breath, 2. Contracting out breath, 2. Next in breath, 3. Out breath, 3. In breath, 4. Out breath, 4. In breath, 5. Out breath, 5. In breath, 6. Out breath, 6. In breath 7. Out breath 7. In breath 8. Out breath 8. In breath 9. Out breath 9. In breath 10. Out breath 10. Now discontinue the counting. Just let the breathing return to its uncontrolled rhythm. But continue to feel it, to observe it. Feel the shorter, subtler expanding and contracting movement of the stomach or rib cage, chest. Especially try to feel where the clothing rubs against the skin of the stomach, rib cage, or chest as it expands and contracts, creating friction, sensation. There's many little different sensations you can notice. It's like turning up the power of a microscope. Just knowing when the breath is coming in and knowing when the breath is going out. You know it by feeling it. And try to notice how each breath is different. Sometimes longer, sometimes shorter. Sometimes you feel it more in the abdomen. Sometimes you feel it more in the rib cage or chest. It's always changing. Our breathing is a symbol or represents impermanence. It's never the same, it's always changing due to the conditions of the mind and body. Be aware of the brief pauses between the breaths, even if it's just a fraction of a second. You can be aware of, notice the pause, and you'll be there for the start of the next in or out breath. Just continually just remember the present moment, Breathing in, sitting. Breathing out, sitting. During the brief pause, try to feel the outline of the sitting body. This breathing is occurring within the larger body. Contemplating the body in the body. The body of breathing within the larger sitting body. Breathing in, sitting. Breathing out, sitting. It's the ongoing, continuous, present moment awareness. Breathing body is the mind's natural connection to the present moment, to the here and now. Sort of feel like a scientist sitting in their laboratory. This body is our laboratory, looking through the microscope of concentrated awareness. To notice the subtle sensations. Or even to notice thoughts arising in the mind. Stay alert, awake, centered in the breathing body. From time to time, take a few more deep, slow breaths. Get re-grounded, centered in the breathing body. Coming back to breathing in, sitting. Breathing out, sitting. Just keep turning up the power of the mental microscope. Notice subtler details, sensation, thoughts or urges arising due to contact. Noticing any of the 5 hindrances arising. Be able to identify the 5 aggregates. This is material form, this is feeling, perception, volition, ego consciousness. Be alert to how quickly certain sensations arise and vanish very quickly. certain body sensation, sounds, or an urge. The phenomenon of impermanence, how each sensation, thought, sound just arises and quickly vanishes due to contact. Also be alert for unpleasant sensations when they arise, and the mind's reaction or resistance to them. The underlying tendency to aversion is there. Breathing in, sitting. Breathing out, sitting. Sensations come and go. Sounds come and go. Thoughts or urges come and go. Reactions come and go. These are all just a continuous flow of impermanence, the five aggregates of the body and mind. Just underneath all of that impermanence, or agitation, confusion, or sleepiness. It's a silent dimension of the now, the present moment awareness. It's literally just beneath your nose. If you have a good sense of that flow of impermanence, and a good onlooking awareness, detached onlooking awareness, try to just feel the body and mind like being an empty house with nobody home to answer the call, knocking on the doors and the windows. There's a sensitive microphone in the house, the awareness that knows but yet doesn't know particulars. Cannot react. Just let that little remaining sense of I or me or mine fade away into the distant background of awareness. Even aches or pains are just sensations within that space of awareness. Not belonging to any body or person. Or even the thought of I or me or mine, just a mental bubble coming and going in that space of awareness. So what perceptions or thoughts arise based on that sound contact? The five aggregates arising, changing, passing away. Nati janam apanyacha panyanati ajaitu yam hi janancha panyacha siri nibbana santiki. There's no meditation without wisdom, no wisdom without meditation. One who both meditates and is wise is close to peace and freedom. Thus spoke the Buddha. Okay, now let's spend the last few minutes of the meditation practicing forgiveness to ourselves and others, and then sending out metta to all living beings. And first of all, just again take a few deep, slow breaths, and after breathing in, hold the air in the lungs a few seconds. Imagine that oxygenated blood being like metta going out to all the cells of the body, bringing them happiness, purifying their negativity, stress, tension. And on the out breath, just feel that relaxation of the body and mind into the present moment. And while you're doing that, you can reflect today, anybody caused any negative thoughts in your mind, or if you did something unmindful that you regret, and just practice forgiving yourself or forgiving others for those lapses in mindfulness, knowing that we all make mistakes. With each out breath, just feel that relaxation of the body and mind, that relief of any guilt or worry, fear. And at some point, just with each out breath, just radiate out these metta vibrations of friendliness, best wishes to your parents, other family members, relatives, good friends, colleagues at work, practicing sympathetic joy if the occasion warrants it. Cultivating the idea, the vibration May all living beings reap the results of their karmic actions, whether unpleasant or pleasant. May all beings be able to cultivate mindfulness, patience, wisdom to meet and overcome all difficulties in life. Continue to develop their meditation practice, help free their mind from confusion and suffering. May all beings be well, peaceful, and wise. May all beings be well, peaceful, and wise. May all beings be well, peaceful, and wise. Okay, to finish the meditation, I invite you to join in chanting the word vibration of sadhu on the long out breath. So take a deep in breath. Sadhu. And placing the hands at the edge of the knees, take one more deep breath. Stretch the head back, pull the hands against the knees, arch back a little bit. And lift the head up on an in-breath. On an out-breath, press the chin to the top of the chest. And on an in-breath, lifting the chin up level with the floor. And the out-breath, relax. Put a smile on your face. Okay, friends. So, this brings our Sunday afternoon to an end, and I hope you're able to have a peaceful or insightful meditation and try to reflect on those Dhammapada verses during the week, because they're all very relevant to most people's daily situations.
Thank you, Bhante.
You're welcome.